tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation about just processing the Christian Education Congress. You're on with our co-host, Brother Eddie Baker, who's one of our members, and also our co-producer of The Struggle is Real, The Struggle Continues. This
How you doing, sir?
He's the pastor of St. Philip AME Church in Savannah, Georgia. St. Philip and St. Philip Monumental in Savannah, Georgia have a healthy brother-sister rivalry about which of the two is the mother church. And so, it just depends. Since I'm not there at the mother church, we'll let them have it. But I don't know if Dr. Clark has anything to say about that.
Well, we know who the mother church of AME Church, though.
Hello.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, bless the Lord. I don't know. We might be having some technical difficulties on your end, Brother Eddie. I don't know if we'll be able to keep your signal up. I just don't know. So listen, thank you so much again for agreeing to talk with us and kind of help us process, if you don't mind, last week's Christian Ed, the Connectional Congress, and then looking ahead at the Congress to come. And I know our time is short, and we're kind of kind of abbreviating our segments given the diminishing attention span of our folk. But in us, we don't need to be long to be strong. But thanks so much for being on. And I know that you were you a part of some of the planning of the Connectional, since you were the host church, the host district?
I was a support. I was in a supporting role.
Okay. Well, you're putting it nicely. I understand. The ground crew.
That's right. That's right.
I get it.
So
how did you?
I was really blessed to have persons that volunteered to kind of take the heavy burden, because Savannah's 4 hours from Atlanta. So
man, yes.
I'll thank God for tremendous support in Atlanta.
Sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess it goes back to teamwork and making the dream work.
Yeah, teamwork makes the dream work. Most definitely.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you kind of gleaned from the experience of I must say, if I might, I was fascinated by the commitment to the modern abolitionist movement,
mm-hmm.
and struck by the definitive stance based on our own history and experience on how we must, decry human trafficking today.
Mm-hmm.
How did you experience that, and what did you see take place in reference to that?
Yeah, I thought Dr. Pierce did a wonderful job putting together the workshops. The theme had to deal with hope, and then he dealt with hope in action. And he talked about environmental justice. He talked about mighty warriors amid troubled times.
Mm-hmm.
A bridge over troubled waters, which was
right.
a youth panel discussion. The ministry of hope in the midst of trauma.
Oh, yes.
With all the pandemics that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then the liberating faith studies,
mm-hmm.
the teaching strategies, and the planning initiatives that we have. And, how do we use technology in dealing with Christian education and dealing with those who have disabilities, environmental justice, that I think is starting to become more popular, but being reactive versus proactive, trying to get the REACT. I think the nomination is trying to engage our young adults more so, and do commend Bishop Jackson with what he is doing And we did recently get another president of the Connectional Ray Act from the 6th Episcopal District. And so, there are some things that are going on. But, we look at health and healing, the role of the Christian educator, which I thought was really interesting. We set up a panel discussion talking about what a Christian education director does at the church level, what one does at the presiding elder, what one does at the conference level, and then what one does at the Episcopal District level, which is where I serve, and then what goes on at the connectional level. So, the AME Church is filled with many different levels. And as we look at that, there's method in our madness, and there's
yes,
madness.
Sir. It is Methodism at its best, is it not? Yes, sir.
Organization keep people working.
It keeps us all busy, I can tell you that. Yeah. And, under Christian education, you got MCAM, which is our music division. There's art therapy that was going on. There's science, technology, and engineering, which is the STEM project. And I think now they're adding the arts, which makes it goes from STEM to STEAM. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I kept highlighting is we understand the difference between Christian education and educating Christians. And we have to do both and.
Okay, unpack that a little bit, please.
Yes. Well, Christian education is talking about how to be a follower of Christ.
Right.
Educating Christians, when we go to school, or go to college or what have you, that's educating Christians. Mm-hmm. But there are some things when we talk about getting out the vote. Well, that's an educating Christian, mm-hmm. but that's very important as it comes under Christian education, because we want to make sure that we're keeping our civic responsibilities. Yeah. The same thing with what we talked about earlier when you start looking at environmental justice.
Yes.
That's educating Christians on the significance and the importance of understanding what that is. Mm-hmm. And Christians impact that, but that's not technically a Christian education subject matter. Mm-hmm. But it is important that we do both, and we do Christian education and we educate Christians. And that's where Sunday school came from. It was to help become literate and financially astute in how to manage our affairs. And so it's more than just talking about the biblical story. It was, how do we survive in life? And so I think we have to understand that our mission as Christian educators is to do Christian education and to educate Christians.
I think it's an important distinction. And there's such a porous dimension between the two when we talk about levels, because they are definitely interrelated. I think you have to have a biblical foundation for engaging in civic affairs, and you have to be grounded in some kind of ethic. I mean, we just saw the overturning of Roe versus Wade on religious or faith or biblical an interpretation of biblical writ. And so a lot of people are really passionate about it, even to the extent of violence. I mean, to justify violence, even though they are members of churches, mm-hmm. so-called. So you've got individuals who go into, I mean, they're not much different than, the so-called jihadists, so to speak, the terrorism of, blowing up clinics and whatever. I watched the protests where they have signs up, and they're like children pushing each other around, as if, one has a sign up saying her body, her choice, the other one saying killing fetuses is evil. I mean, so we do need we need clarity. And I understand exactly, what you're saying, the importance of that.
And as Christian educators, I use Facebook as my platform because I have a wide variety of persons. And on my friends list, I got about 3,500, and black, white, Republican, Democrat,
that's it,
liberal, conservative. And I allow that debate to go on, but I also put things on there because I know they're watching my page. And I knew they were watching me on what my take was on the Roe versus Wade overturning. And so I put on my page, I am pro-choice, but pro-choice does not mean that I am pro-abortion. Pro-choice means I think the choice is up to each individual to determine what they feel is best for their body.
Right.
I don't agree with everything, but I do believe that they have the right to choose.
Right. They should have the option to choose. I don't believe in abortion as a form of birth control.
Correct. We're together.
I mean, there are times in which it's just not feasible. And, there are times in which we all make choices that, we need to reverse. We make mistakes, so to speak. Not to say that the child is a mistake, but that the parent or the parent made a mistake. I also believe this, and this may sound weird. When I look at scripture, biblical writ, I look at Jeremiah's call, for instance, Jeremiah 1 and 5. God says to Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. So life did not begin with conception from God's standpoint, from a biblical standpoint. If you really engage biblical writ, life doesn't begin with the inception of the zygote and the fetus and all of that, or it begins before that. Life begins with God. I may be crazy, but there are some children that are stillborn, never come to birth. They may be born in another, because their life may be, in another family or another, that kind of thing. Something that's beyond what I could even imagine or think. But I think this is
went pretty deep about.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, life doesn't begin with human beings. Life begins with God. God gave the life.
Yes, I agree.
And so, it may not be that life will come through that mother. It might come through a different person in a different family. But it's so politicized. I think it's been manipulated and utilized in order to push a particular agenda.
The ban on abortion is trying to manipulate the peoples, trying to have control over. And you might always admit is they want more white in the world because they feel like peoples of color are taking over.
And I've heard that before, that a lot of European lawmakers are concerned that their birth rates are declining, but the birth rates of African Americans and other ethnicities is escalating, and so there's this fear of the numbers being eclipsed by 2040, 2050, which is within the next couple of decades. And so these become watershed moments to try to do anything. They took Malcolm X's statement, by any means necessary, to a whole different level.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, I'm hoping they can change it a little bit, because I think a lot of the states and is going overboard with it. Tell as though they own the people that live in their state. Tell them they can't leave and go to another state and get something.
Right.
Lock them up. I think that's very wrong. And I got the same belief that you all have on the abortion thing, and I think it is the individual's choice, and that's them and the good Lord. But for you to hem people's up like that and threaten to lock them up because they didn't do it in your state and they live in your state, I don't think that's right.
Yeah. And you wonder what the real issue is.
Yes.
There are some things that are above us that we don't know. And Dr. Logan just brought up a point. It could be that they want to increase the European population, if you will. There's so many things. And I worked in a hospital. I was a hospital administrator for a number of years, and I saw some things that I don't think anyone needed to know about, because there was some ethical issues that we had to make decisions about.
Sure.
But, you look at all this, and I want you to understand some things that in the abortion issue came out of this gene therapy and transplant therapy, and what people don't understand is fetal tissue is designed to grow. So they didn't just throw those babies away.
That's right.
They used those.
That's right. They harvested the cells.
Harvest.
Yep.
Right.
That whole Frankenstein.
Oh yeah. They're serious now.
Yeah.
It's $1 billion industry, no question.
If you saw some of the things that they were doing, it would blow your mind with what they do with fetal parts. But that's where a piece of liver can grow.
Wow.
And so to take a piece of fetal liver and put it on a part of your liver, there's something about fetal parts. They're designed to grow. And so there's a lot of experimentation going on with eye transplant, corneal transplants, because the eyeballs are the only part of the human body that does not grow.
Interesting.
Your eyeballs are the same size from your birth until your death.
Really?
Yes. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I never thought of that, but I see where you're going, literally.
Yeah. You start talking about harvesting body parts. It's that old Frankenstein theory, which there's some truth to it, So like I said, I worked in, and not only did I work in the hospital, I was what's called the deceit and affairs coordinator. So I handled all the deaths.
Wow.
From abortion.
Cause of death, the reason.
Yes,
wow.
Yes.
Wow.
I determined whether something was criminal, whether it was a medical examiner's case, and if something happened outside of the hospital, I had to observe the bodies before they were brought in. So, burn victims and the whole nine. I saw things I would not want most people to ever witness.
That's amazing.
And bodies that have been left out in the woods for,
months,
days,
years.
weeks, months, years, that was just, and I saw people flip out. I mean, people they lost it.
Yeah, that sounds very grotesque. I work for a funeral home, and I see some of the things that you see when I pick up, but a lot of time they're being bagged, or we still got to open it up once we get back to the funeral home.
That's right.
So, but I never think about that when they have abortion and how they would use the
parts,
babies' body parts too. Is that a bad thing or is it a good thing?
Well, there's, like I said, during the Holocaust.
Oh yes,
we call that one of the atrocities of human history.
That's it.
During the Holocaust was the greatest medical breakthroughs because they were experimenting on human bodies and what you could, what was your pain tolerance and what happens if you gave too much medications or chemotherapy. They experimented tremendously on Jews, blacks, and those that they felt of less origin, but it was major medical breakthroughs during that Holocaust time. And the other piece, I'm going to add is, what do you do with those fetal parts? And the hospital that I worked at, they collected them, and they would at some point incinerate them and use it as fertilizer
Whoa.
Wow. That, woo.
I told you, I saw things that were just.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. So human remains our great fertilizing
biological remains.
And one of the elected officials was the recipient of remains for his farm.
That kind of goes back to what you were talking about in terms of environmental justice, because in some respect, and tremendously so, a lot of the toxins that are in the environment are replete within our communities. Many of our health challenges that goes back to why people die early ages or of very unusual illnesses is because of the way in which our immediate environment is exposed to all these toxins and acids and airborne particulates that are just very harmful to the human body.
Yeah. Why are power substations in Black communities? Why are dump sites for communities?
That's it.
Why are oil refineries near poor communities? And those communities we know have high cancer rates.
Yeah. Breast cancer, uterine cancer, testicular cancer.
Yeah.
And I tell you, those also have the restaurants, so-called fast food restaurants, where the food is actually toxic and poisoning.
When I taught middle school, and I had to have a therapist because I was at I asked for the worst middle school to teach because I wanted to prove a point, and my point was our children can learn. And I taught 7th grade math, and I went through 3 pregnancies with one of my students in the 7th grade.
Oh.
And I went to my therapist because it was just disturbing to me she had 2 abortions. And finally, the 3rd time, the doctor said, "You're too scarred. You have to have the baby." And she had the baby, brought the baby to school and asked the teachers if anybody wanted a baby.
Oh, wow.
And so I went to my therapist because it was just overwhelming dealing with the situations of these children who were being prostituted, working at strip clubs, the things that they were into. And my therapist said to me, she said, "Jay," that's not what got me there. I'm sorry. My counselor came to me as we were talking about this, and she said, "Jay, I need your help. I just counseled a 21-year-old grandmother."
21-year-old?
Grandmother. 21-year-old grandmother.
And I said, "What?" She said, "Yeah, she was 11 years old. And her dog." So I went to my therapist and told her the story. And she said, "Jay, as you and I are speaking at this moment, I have 3 9-year-olds in labor and delivery at Grady Hospital."
Jesus.
Said, "You gotta be kidding." I said, 9 years old? She said, "McDonald's produces beef."
Yes.
Have been injected.
Yes.
With growth hormone.
Yes.
When our children eat those McDonald's hamburgers.
That's right, McDonald's.
Growth hormones transfer into the children.
That's right.
And the children begin to grow
ovulate
at a faster rate than normal. And our 9-year-old children in the poor communities are developing into women at a very young age. And she said, and nobody wants to speak out against what is happening to our children. So, there's so many things in just injustices, and it's targeted towards our communities.
So how does Christian education as a Christian educator who's not only educating Christians, but also doing the other thing in terms of providing Christ-centered education for Christians. How does that? What are some of the challenges that were really surfaced, and were there any next steps? Was it like an empowerment agenda or something that engaged us beyond the Congress?
Well, there's several things that came out of it, and we also did a march.
Right, that Thursday.
That was the Big Bethel, dealing with sex trafficking, and
right.
We have to speak out. First of all, the Christian education and educating, just like today, we've educated each other on a number of topics.
Right.
and so I think that's key. Education is education.
Yes.
Right.
They call it pedagogy, which is the act of teaching and learning at the same time.
Right.
You all have taught me something, and you all have learned something. And so that's what we have to do. And I think we have to expose each other to the information that we are aware of, and then raise the question, so where do we go from here?
Right.
So as we do participate in demonstrations and bring light to what's going on, tomorrow I'm going to be doing a march here in Savannah on the crime, the crime vigils, bringing it to light. As Christians, we, you said, let your light so shine,
right,
so that they may see. Some people don't see what we see. Just like the things we shared today, we saw some things we had not seen before because we were blinded by that.
Right.
So I think as Christians, our job is to shine light on issues that may or may not be known. And as we shine the light and bring it to our attention and to our communities, the attention that we're not sweeping this under a rug, we're not being silent. So we have to sometimes give voice to issues that are before us, and not let those issues go unspoken. The greatest sin of Christians is the sin of silence.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Silence is violence.
Yeah. So that's why we have to continue bringing light to the issues that are brought to our attention, and then how do we go forth as Christians? We live the life of Christ. We offer Christ, but we also bring light to issues that are impacting our communities.
Okay.
Yes.
So the agenda is both to shine light on the issues as well as be an example of a Christ-centered life.
Yes.
So be the change you want to see.
I'm not trying to be rude, but the storm pretty heavy on me. I'm gonna have to get off air for a few minutes. I got a pretty good lightning storm going on around me right now.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'll come back and see if y'all.
It's just gonna be a few more minutes. We're just gonna ask
get off next stuff when big lightning storm comes through.
Your grandmama taught you that.
But no, my mama taught me in a good way. I was a kid. I'm gonna tell you this, and I'm gonna go. My mama told me, said, lay on the bed. We laid on the bed every time a lightning storm. We get on her bed and lay down. Paul, he didn't want to lay on the bed. I was over by the window. A big streak of lightning hit across in front of that window. I laid on the bed. I laid on the bed every time she said. But I hate to leave you because I really enjoyed it. I hope we can get you back again, Doc, so I can hear more of what you have to tell.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that something within a short period of time.
Well, thank you for being a part of it.
All right.
Absolutely. We're going to conclude with some comment. All right. I appreciate you, Brother Eddie. I'll let you know. We'll post this, give Roderick to edit it, and we'll post it.
All right.
Thank you so much. So, Doc, so you definitely have the takeaway of not only shining light on the issues, but also being an example and being an advocate for justice. What do you, let's switch to next week. What you think next week holds for us, and what you think will be some of the takeaways and some of the agenda that we should anticipate taking up?
Well, you know, Bishop Jackson is huge on youth.
Yes, sir.
And so one of the things that he is asking us to do is to be mindful of how we're bringing youth into our congregations. So one of the things that he's dealing with, one is, you know, and this is Bishop, his big thing is worship. You know, if you have genuine and passionate worship, that's going to draw people in.
Yes.
So you're going to see some great preaching, obviously, comes in. You're going to have workshops on genuine and passionate worship. And then we're going to have some younger people coming in and presenting. He's going to be dealing with discipleship. He's a big advocate on understanding the difference between membership and discipleship.
Great.
And so that's going to be a big issue. Then going back to understanding how to bring worth to worship. Worship means to give worth to. So when we worship God, we always say our God is worthy to be praised. And so this is something that I think when we talk about stewardship, how to get a handle on it, I think that's becoming a big topic on tithing and what that means. Stewardship, what are we doing to care for what has been put into our responsibility? Right. So, one of the things that we have to start doing, is understanding our church has a shortage of youth. We have a shortage of pastors. We have a shortage of advocates, and we have a shortage of leadership. So we've got to somehow empower, embolden, encourage.
It's a challenge, isn't it? We're in a quite an opportunity, and I appreciate the fact that we are grappling with that at this leadership Congress. And what I really appreciate is we don't really have all the answers.
No,
I think that as much I appreciate Bishop Jackson and you and others working with this project of providing a space where in some way the alchemy of all of our collective presences and presentations and involvement being in the room can help us to begin to figure out approach is, because it's not going to be cookie cutter approach to every congregation, every culture. So I appreciate just the space and the opportunity to even talk about this, because a lot of times we're just brushing stuff under the rug, not really dealing with the hard facts. So it kind of goes back to Jim Collins, From Good to Great, right, where you got to deal with the hard, cold facts. You got to deal with the realities in the room. And you got to be honest about what's really happening. Otherwise, you can't really see the opportunities even among the threats.
Yeah. And I want to commend you, because as we talk about, where we're going, and technology is a big piece, and, doing a podcast, a few churches are doing podcasts. Right. And so this is just one way of getting out into social media. When our church went onto the streaming system, we didn't realize how many people were watching us.
That's right.
We got a phone call from Japan news agency.
Wow.
They wanted to interview us with what they saw going on. We had Black Voters Matter, and we had pictures of, children out and doing it. And they just said, you're doing great ministry. We want to interview you. And my secretary was like, this is great, but how did you find out about it?
Right.
And once again, they went online. They were watching us.
Interesting.
When Bishop Jackson came to speak for our anniversary, we may have had maybe 75 to 100 people, and it was during COVID.
Yeah.
And I screenshotted our streaming page because there are over 400 online watching.
That's right.
And I said, Bishop, I know it doesn't look like much, but you have 500 people in service this morning.
Exactly. That's right.
And I shared with him the screenshot, and he was like, "Whoa,
Wow."
And I said, we're moving to another dimension.
That's right.
Of worship, and so it's kind of a hybrid. So we have face-to-face, and we have streaming systems. And I think as we talk about, it's not just on Sunday morning.
That's right.
People look at that worship experience throughout the week.
They do.
And I can watch it. That's why I said I have focused. I said we got to keep it to an hour as much as possible. First Sunday we don't do it, but the rest of the Sundays we try to keep it to an hour because now that we're on television, if you will, it needs to model that television series, which doesn't go over an hour. And, that's why I said we gotten so much response from persons who said, I really enjoy, I watch it, and I love it because I can go back and watch it again and share it with someone else and let them know, hey, we had good service Sunday, and then they'll go watch it.
That's it.
So, I commend you because as we talk about podcasts, my nephew out of Houston, Texas, has been trying to get me to do a podcast. And I said, I need another piece of my agenda. Like I need another hole in my head, but.
Would you be surprised how simple it can be if you have just people kind of working with you, just real simple pieces of equipment. And I know some of the podcasts look very rudimentary. Jay, I've gotten Dr. Jay, I've gotten to the point, man, I don't even care what it looks like. I'm just trying to produce something to get people to think, just trying to create content that has some substance that, kind of primes the pump for further consideration. And that's why I thought it would be so important to put out some of your projections, reflections from the last the Connection of Christian Education Congress, and then your projection of what you think is the potential of what can happen at the next one. Because I think we need to anticipate what's possible as we glean from the last one and look at this one. And the syncretism of the two, I think, provides for us something specific. Because in one area of synergy is the fact that Georgia, my understanding is that Georgia ranks 8th in the country in human trafficking, that on its various interstates and so forth. And so we got to talk about, in my opinion, and I talked with my missionaries about this last Sunday during their election. They were having election officers. We have to be a haven we need to be a safe house for trafficked individuals. There's some kind of symbol we need to have, some kind of QR code that lets trafficked individuals know this is a place you can come if you need to run away from your pimp or whoever.
But let me share something with you. And I learned this, did a piece at Spelman on it. I asked them when Lisa Diane Rhodes was the chaplain at Spelman. I'd asked her if she would host a human trafficking workshop. She fought me tooth and nail, but finally agreed. And it blew up. I knew it would. But I learned something because and I had gone through this experience, and I was like, I messed up. And here's what I want to share. You have to be very careful because young girls are recruiting the young girls.
Wow.
And they'll fight you. They don't want to come out because they're making money they've never seen before.
Yes. It's
not a lot of money, but it's a lot of money to them.
Right.
And so you give a 14-year-old $100. Boy, that's like $1 million.
And yes, they're balling.
Right. So, once you got them out of the system, they'll fight you to get back in. And that was something that someone who had been trafficked, shared with me. She opened up a farm, if you will, for these girls. And she said, you know, she spends most of her time fighting with them to keep them in. And once they learn to break that cycle, then you can start working. But it's hard because most people give up when someone fights you to go back to it.
That's right. And it's like any other addiction. An addict will fight you to get to more. Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's why I said we really have to train people. This is not for, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I taught 7th grade, you know, the girls were recruiting girls, you know, for these strip joints. Now I'm thinking as a pastor, teacher, I'm trying to find out what strip joint has minors stripping. That's my mindset, because I'm going to run them out of town. And they start laughing at me. And they were like, Mr. Haithco, we're not talking about a strip club. We talking about a pole in somebody's basement.
Yes.
And here's the kicker, a wooden pole at that.
Oh.
So I said, what? A wooden pole? I said, I went and got my science teacher. And I said, you need to have a class on why the poles in the club are metal versus wood.
Oh, man.
Because these kids are now being exposed to all of the porous elements that are going to are disease petri dishes. And I'm sitting there going, not only do they not know what they're doing, but they're doing it on apparatuses that are ridden with concern.
Yeah.
So I said, you know, it goes back to, you know, do we give out clean needles? You know, and I was sitting there going, oh my gosh. So the whole issue becomes, you know, at least educate them on sanitary
surfaces and how to clean up and how to sanitize.
But you know, getting them to talk to us about it, getting them comfortable. I learned a lot, and like I said, there's a whole lot we don't know because we don't want to know, and they're young. I mean, I young as 5 years old that I'm aware of, and I said, don't let me see it because I will do things that violate thou shalt not kill.
I heard that. You know, Jay, I have enjoyed our conversation principally because I learned a couple things about you, and it appears that you were in the right place at the right time. The things that you've observed and witnessed over your career and the conversation that's brewing right now, you have, I think, an insight and a take that's critical. You just taught me something about making sure that we're clear about the addictive element of those who are being trafficked and how, you know, in your various communities of faith, they may be influencers in a way that might be unfortunate. And so that's important. I pray that as we go into next week's Congress, that as we move forward into just continuing in ministry, that we will grow in our work, because I think the civil rights certainly should include a modern abolitionism. And so I want to just commend you. There was tremendous insight. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your Thursday evening and just kind of really educating us. We're going to produce this and put this out and give you and send it to you. You can share it and that kind of thing, because we want people to come next week or even stream next week with, you know, all of this in mind in terms of what the overall conversations are about, you know, what's upcoming. One of the things I'm really concerned about too is active shooter preparedness. You know, this is really going off the chain, bro. This is off the chain. When you think about 4th of July, one gunman was semi-successful, and the police thwarted another planned attack. And people are so much on edge. There was another just fireworks that went off in a crowd, and the people stampeded because they thought it was an active shooter.
Yeah.
On our campus, I'll tell you this, on our campus, one of my stewards actually intercepted a guy who was coming to the church, knock on the door, European dude, backpack, saying he was homeless. He just wanted to find a place to sit down and eat his lunch. He just wanted permission. But we don't know that for sure. We don't know what that brother had in that backpack. We don't know where he went. Supposedly he went through the clearing on the side. But I just wonder if, that was just like a test salvo just to see the extent to which there's security at this location. Because on our marquee, we have statements like war is not the answer and justice for all refugees. And none of us are free until all of us are free. I mean, we're African Methodist Episcopal Church, and that makes us, I think, uniquely a target in that respect. So, we had to do some things with respect to security immediately just to be on the safe side. So, yeah, we are having to educate and engage ourselves. Anything you'd like to say in closing, if you don't mind, to the Christian educators, to young people to come, encourage, however you want to say it.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for allowing me to be a part of this podcast and, for us to share one with another.
It's a pleasure.
I think there's power in numbers. I think we have to come together as one and put our ideas and thoughts together and share information and come up with a plan of action. And, we need to take advantage that we have leadership that is strong in social justice. And, if we continue going forward in educating Christians and sharing our Christian education with each other and letting our light shine, I think God will bless us in a mighty way. So
absolutely. Absolutely well said. Thank you so much. And thank you all for watching this edition of The Struggle is Real. The struggle continues. You can see the struggle that we are addressing, and we're not trying to necessarily come up with answers as much as we're asking questions. And as much as we are engaging in the constant process of learning, the constant didactic, the constant, as Dr. J put it, the constant pedagogy, the way we learn and teach, the constant praxis as we act and learn is a part of what it means to be disciples of Jesus Christ. And a part of this very tumultuous moment. It is off the chain, so we speak. So yes, the struggle continues. Dr. J, we'll see you next week, Lord willing. And anything we need to do to be a part of whatever can help you, please let us know. And thank you so much for doing an amazing job. I can see why you continue to be assigned each year to the same work, but a different way. You're continuing to evolve the work, and I appreciate that very much.
All right. God bless you. Appreciate it.
Bless you as well. My best to your queen.
Peace.
Yes, sir. Sisters and brothers, thank you so much for tuning in to this edition of The Struggle is Real. The struggle continues, and hopefully we'll see you next Thursday. This is a special edition. We just did it kind of a half hour, 45 minutes or so. We're kind of experimenting with our format, and hopefully we can kind of evolve into where we need to be. So thank you for your patience. Thank you for your presence. Please share this and give us your comments, your feedback, and let us know what you're thinking about our format, our concept, and our ideas. Again, thank you so much. God bless you. And we'll see you next time. The struggle is real. The struggle continues. God bless.
So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory